Auschwitz deserves all the attention that it gets because it was the largest camp by far in the Holocaust. And, I mean, we're talking about 2 million victims. We're talking about a place where perhaps 1 million children, mostly Jewish children, were killed. Auschwitz, I would not deny Auschwitz any of the attention that it gets, but I do think that Jasenovac has been neglected partly for political reasons. I mean, Michael Berenbaum pointed out something interesting once. He said, well, it's not simply, and Michael Berenbaum was the first research director of the U.S. Holocaust Museum, and he worked for President Bill Clinton. Michael Berenbaum said, yes, it was inconvenient in the 1990s for us to talk about Jasenovac, and he was sad about that. He was upset that the political forces from the State Department actually kept the U.S. Holocaust Museum from actually talking about Jasenovac. So that's one reason. But as Michael Berenbaum said, he also said, well, first of all, you have to understand, knowledge about the Holocaust really began to take off after the 1970s. And so it really was only in the 1980s and 1990s and the museum itself was only created in 1993. So it was, to some extent, knowledge of the Holocaust really only began to really began to pick up steam in the 1990s. And it just happened to be at a bad time for Yugoslavia. It happened to be at a time when the United States and European countries were in conflict with Yugoslavia and with the Serbs in particular. And so, for that reason, Jasenovac was downplayed deliberately by the U.S. government. But there's also another reason. I mean, Michael Berenbaum pointed this out also. Yugoslavia is simply more complicated. I mean, Poland is, and where Auschwitz was, is in some respects easier to explain. The death camps in Poland, of which Auschwitz was the number one, is easier to explain in many respects because it's really about the extermination of the Jews and, to some extent, well, to a large extent, Soviet soldiers, prisoners of war, and Polish inmates, some Polish inmates as well. But for the most part, it's an easier story to explain because it's Hitler carrying out the final solution after the Wannsee Conference.